The Caracol that we find at Chichen Itza shows architectural innovation. Here we see a cylindrical tower on a broad rectangular terrace. The tower itself stands out. It's a round structure. It's not something that we see very often in the Western classical world. It's something we don't see a lot of necessarily in Mesoamerica, although it's far more common there. And that tower contains two concentric walls, which enclose a staircase leading to a chamber near the top of the structure. And here, I'm going to bring up the pen. On the right, this is looking down at that tower, and here we see that concentric staircase leading up to this observation room, which we see drawn out here. And this observation room is fairly interesting. It's laid out similar to this conch shell, which would be attributed to the feathered serpent. So there's some religiosity to it in terms of the architecture. It's not a temple, or we don't know necessarily if it's a temple, but we do know it serves another purpose, which is from that center observation chamber, or observation room as we see here. And obviously a large part of it is missing and the walls simply rebuilt. We notice that you can make a number of very specific observations. So here we're facing magnetic south. Here we're focused on the southernmost position of Venus. Here's the sunset at the equinoxes. And here's the northernmost position of Venus. Now, by using a single planet, or here's more theory that we might be looking at the moon as well as due west and due south. So why, first of all? Well, this may be functioning as a very specific calendar. These windows, of course, acting as an observatory, the same way possibly Stonehenge does, the same way possibly other structures in the world do. And what they're doing is they're using corners, these lines. So if I'm standing here and I look at this corner and I happen to see a certain thing, such as the sunset, I know that it is the vernal equinox. I know that if I'm standing here and I connect 2 points and then the moon is the third, that it is this date. Now, of course, you need 3 points to do that. So if I have a point here and a point here, and I'm looking at something very, very distant, if these 2 points align, then that means that I'm looking at the correct line to make the observation to the more distant object, which is exactly what we're theorizing is happening here. So it's acting as a calendar, very important for things like planting crops. Not so much for harvesting. Harvesting is a little more intuitive. But it would also tell you, for example, the time for specific rituals to take place. In modern society, we think of calendars as something that simply surrounds us, but the concept of time is a very abstract one. It's difficult to track over time. So you would put your resources into something that would help maintain your civilization, just like something that would tell you when it really is spring versus when it's just warm for a couple of weeks, unusually in February or March. Now, the windows on the summit and in the walls may have been for astronomical observation. We're not 100% sure, but we're fairly certain that they would have used it for that purpose. The windows at the top that we see at the very top of the structure may well be observational, but they may also be a representation of decorative images, or these could be niches representing caves. Once again, that idea of the afterlife mixed with time, like we saw at the Pyramid of the Niches in Veracruz.